Hey everyone, James from TeaDB here, bringing you another Inbetweenisode. I am back on the ripe train, going to be bringing the last of the Yunnan Sourcing ripe series here. So this is the Yunnan Sourcing Bada, so that is a area also in Menghai County, as is all of the regional set, and that is the southern southwestmost point of Menghai, just right on the border of probably Myanmar. It's a region that is usually blended in. You can run into sort of single region Bada cakes, but they tend to be raw when they are, just as most of these do. So it's interesting. I think this might be the only version of a ripe single region Bada cake that I can recall at least having. So interesting to try this. I am on steep number 5. I'm using about just shortly shy of 10 grams here, 250 milliliters or so. If you've seen any of my ripe episodes in the last couple of years, you probably are familiar with this sort of format. So steep number 5 there. I'm going to do steep number 6 while this has just been boiled, this water here. Hope everyone has been doing all right. I've heard a lot of people have been drinking a lot more tea at home due to COVID-19. Welcome to the drinking tea during the workday life. I work from home before this, so I have always been doing this sort of routine. So as is my routine, I normally have a tea that I'm drinking sort of on my own. Today it's some oolong, some roasted oolong, and as well as some tea that I drink with my wife in the morning, and I'll drink it throughout the day, and that tea is almost always ripe pu'erh. So this is the Bada. Almost completely finished off this cake. It took me a little while to sort of get the feel for this tea, so I ended up almost drinking entirely through the cake before bringing it on to an in-between. So taking a quick smell. It has that woody smell to it, but what is interesting to me too is this tea also brings in a little bit more of that fruit-forward things. It doesn't have some of that bitterness that you can get just a hint of in the Bulang, a little bit more of in the Bawang, not part of this series from Scott. So I enjoyed those parts of it. Pretty strong aroma to it as well. Cheers. I'm going to quickly say that I don't get any of the sort of ripe, freshly piled taste to it. Got a little bit of that in the Mengsong, but in none of the other teas from that series. Cheers. A little bit of creamy wood and vanilla. So similar in that sense to the Mengsong, but what I like about this tea is it mixes a little bit of that with a little bit of that fruitiness too. A little bit almost tropical, very bright in that fruitiness, especially for a ripe. So I appreciate that it's a little more complex. The Mengsong ended up being a little monochromatic for me. Perfectly enjoyable tea still, but I do like this tea a little bit more. One thing that's interesting to me is for some of these ripes, I'll usually try to leaf up a little bit when I do an episode, and I'll vary the amount of leaf I'm using from anywhere to like 7.8, 7.9 grams all the way up to like 11 or so. So today I'm using 10, so a little bit on the higher end. One thing I've noticed is that using more leaf can sometimes, for me at least, reduce the complexity, and I may have steeped that a little too short, but it can also increase the body and stuff like that. So if I'm looking to get more of a rich, fruity brew out of this tea, I feel like I would use a little bit less leaf and maybe brew it a little lighter, and that can just bring out a little bit more of those notes. But if you really want like that darker, heavier taste to it, just brewing it a little longer or using a bit more leaf tends to do the trick. So in this episode, in the episodes I do tend to leaf a bit more, so I'm used to getting a little bit more body out of the tea. Anyways, let's see how this is. Cheers. Yeah, so pretty similar to the last brew. sort of fruity. You know what? I'm gonna do another steep here just to see, give this a little bit more of a stress test. So I know I am tossing on a little bit of tea, but it is for the sake of bringing this to you on camera without making everyone wait. Just gonna have a sip of this. So just gonna brew this a little longer. I think I wasn't thinking when I brewed that last one. I just give it a little bit more time to hang out. Yeah, so I guess in comparison to the other teas, I probably like this approximately similarly to the Hekai and Bulang, which makes it a pretty good value. This still sells for 10 cents a gram. I bought this before the price hike, so it was just a little bit less. To me, the taste is a little bit less of the classical woodiness of that Bulang, which I do enjoy a lot. For me, that tea fits more like a conventional ripe. This tea is still pretty solidly in the Menghai area ripe category, but it is a little bit different from that tea. So nice little contrast versus that. And for me, it also has a little bit more complexity than the Mengsong, which I found to just be a little bit too much in that sort of creamy, woody range. All right, so brewed that, I don't know, 40 seconds or so. And unfortunately, the water probably cooled down just a little bit, but the pot was quite hot, so we will see how it turns out. Yeah, so a little more fruitiness to this. Still not terribly different. Brings out a little bit more sharpness to it. The brew all around is just a little richer with this. Pretty nice and heating. I'm filming this in mid-May, sort of on a cooler day, so appropriate, I guess, for the weather. It's being kind of a Seattle gray out there, so enjoying it. I do drink ripe year round though, so I'll be enjoying these ripes even on the hottest days of the year here in Seattle. Yeah, nice texture to it as well. Getting a bit more of that, a little bit more minerally and stuff. So a nice, pretty complex brew for a single origin tea. Yeah, I mean, I can sort of see why Bada is blended into something like the Bulang to create sort of a different a feel to it. But I can enjoy this tea perfectly on its own too. So yeah, I'm gonna have one last sip. Yeah, so thank you to Scott for producing these teas, enjoying tasting through them. I think for me, a lot of ripe kind of blends a lot together. So having these teas sort of in close succession, I can sort of pick out the little differences to them. If I had these teas like with a further time difference apart, like if I had this tea and I had the Bulang, let's say, in a year, and then the Hekai the year after that, I think I'd have a hard time picking out the differences between the teas, just because it does end up being a little subtle, and for me, ripe is also a little more casual, so maybe just a little bit less attention paid to it when I'm just drinking it in the morning and just waking up. But yeah, this one's pretty enjoyable. I rate it just about in the middle of the pack, so pretty darn solid. Gonna give it a 6.2 rating. So thank you all for tuning in. Let me know what you'd like to see. I think I'm probably going to do a Q&A pretty soon. Yeah, I will see you all next time. Cheers.